"You're old tech," she purred, then looked me dead in the eye. "Bye." She didn't blink, didn't shift her weight, just stood there in her designer heels like she'd just dropped a mic in front of 28 years of sweat and loyalty. My name is Rick Wallace. I'm 54 years old. For the past nearly 3 decades, I've been the senior regional sales manager at Stratus Link Distribution, a tech logistics firm based in Austin, Texas. When I started, it was 3 guys in a rented warehouse with fax machines that jammed every other hour and a coffee pot older than sin. We were moving motherboards and dial-up routers back when people still asked what a modem was. I helped build that place. Not figuratively, literally. I laid tile in the first office bathroom. I ran Cat5 cable through the ceiling with a flashlight in my mouth and fiberglass in my skin. When the founder, Doug Merriman, pitched our first $1 million account, I was the one who closed it. I bled quota, lived it. For 28 years, I never missed, not once. Which is why, that Monday morning, when my desk phone rang at 9:04 a.m., I didn't think twice before picking it up. "Hey, Rick," came the voice, smooth, lilting, vaguely patronizing. "Can you come down to the glass room? Quick chat." That voice belonged to Maya Carrington, the new director of operations. Doug's girlfriend, 27 years old, MBA from somewhere fancy, wore confidence like perfume, loud and synthetic. She'd been with the company less than 8 months but somehow walked around like she invented inventory management. I left my coffee steaming next to a spreadsheet I'd been building for a Q4 rollout, walked the hallway past the awards case I helped fill, past the team photos where my smile never reached my eyes, but my shoulders were always squared. The glass room was just that, glass on all sides. You didn't talk secrets in there. That was the point. Visibility. Transparency. Bullshit. She didn't stand up when I walked in, didn't offer me a seat. She just turned, leaned a hip against the edge of the table, and said it. "You're old tech." Then, "Bye." I blinked once, thought maybe I'd misheard. I looked at her, really looked, turtleneck, perfect makeup, iPad already loaded, with God knows what, slide deck. Her nails clicked against the metal chair behind her like she was bored already. "That's it?" I asked. She shrugged, flipping a loose strand of her dark hair over one shoulder. "We're restructuring, going lean, agile. Jason will be taking over your responsibilities starting today." Jason, her cousin, the guy who couldn't sell ice in the desert with a fire hose. I'd trained him for 2 weeks last fall. He spent more time checking his reflection in his phone than reviewing product tiers. "No severance?" I said, still calm, like I was asking about the weather. Her smile was wide and practiced. "You're a contractor. Technically. Month to month. Paperwork's clean." Doug signed off. Doug, the same man who toasted my 25th anniversary with a speech about loyalty and grit. Now he couldn't even look me in the eye. Let his girlfriend toss me like a floppy disk. I didn't raise my voice, didn't pound the table. I nodded once, like I was absorbing battlefield intel. That's what it felt like being in the kill zone, heart steady, breathing even. While everything inside burned, I turned to leave, hand on the glass door. Then I heard it, laughter, her and someone else. I glanced over my shoulder. Jason was walking in, button-down shirt too tight, hair slicked back, carrying a branded laptop bag like a trophy. He looked at me, hesitated, then kept walking. He didn't say a word. At my desk, my login was already disabled, my email frozen, like I'd never existed. 28 years deleted in under 10 minutes. I took my keys, my jacket, the picture of my daughter from the metal clip above my monitor. That was all. I didn't speak to anyone on the floor. Most wouldn't meet my eyes. The ones who did looked sorry, or scared. As I stepped into the elevator, I saw Jason from the corner of my eye, already spinning in my chair, logging into my terminal. Maya stood behind him, pointing something out on the screen, nails flashing. I didn't flip the table. I just walked out. But the war had already started. Day 2. Wrong price sheets went out to every client on the East Coast. Phones howled. Orders collapsed. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of black coffee, scrolling headlines with one hand and scratching my dog behind the ears with the other, when the first text came through. Rick, something's off. Really off. Then another. East Coast is on fire. Who sent out the numbers? I didn't reply. I just set the phone down, stared at the steam curling from my cup, and thought about the spreadsheet I'd built for those accounts. I remembered the way I'd formatted column F to flag margin violations, the notes I'd left in the comments about bundle pricing rules, the way the conditional formatting turned red if a rep got too generous. The sheet had my fingerprints on it. Not literally, I wiped down my keyboard every Friday before heading home, but the bones were mine. I'd built that quoting structure in 2013, after a $3 million mistake by a rookie rep nearly tanked our quarterly profit margin. It had been refined, patched, upgraded, but the core logic, that was my code. Now I was watching it detonate from the outside. By 10 a.m., 3 major accounts had backed out of negotiations. The telecom rep in Charlotte posted a screenshot of the pricing error in a private Slack thread that leaked wholesale routers quoted at under cost. Jason's name was on the sender line. The timestamp showed he'd sent it at 6:12 a.m., probably while trying to impress Maya by moving fast and breaking things. He broke millions. I stayed quiet. I didn't text Doug. Didn't reach out to the floor. This wasn't my company anymore. I was just a man with a coffee cup and a front row seat. The public explanation hit LinkedIn by lunch. Due to a recent systems migration, some legacy pricing structures caused inconsistencies in our outbound quotations. The issue has been resolved. We remain committed to accuracy and client trust. Maya's post. Sleek. Bloodless. 2,000 likes. But I knew the truth. There was no system migration, just a shallow dive into a pool with no water. I got a call from Phil in Ops. He didn't leave a voicemail, just rang twice and hung up. I'd trained him 6 years ago, watched him grow from a green college hire into one of the best logistics minds we had. If he was calling, it was because things were worse than they looked. I opened my laptop, pulled up the backup files I'd archived before they shut off my access. Dated folders, document logs, metadata, everything I'd ever built, saved quietly on my personal drive. It wasn't theft. It was preservation. You don't walk out of a burning house without grabbing the family photo album. Scrolling through those files felt like flipping through an old journal. I remembered building each one. Where I was. What was happening at the company. Who'd made what mistake and how I'd patched it. Every formula, every drop-down, every locked cell, it was all muscle memory. I pulled up the East Coast sheet. The one Jason had butchered. He'd unprotected the cells, changed margin thresholds, removed the auto-flagging. Then he'd exported the whole thing as a flat PDF, no formulas, no checks, and blasted it out to every enterprise client from Boston to Atlanta. No wonder the phones were screaming. Still, I didn't move. Not yet. I was watching, breathing slow, like a sniper, setting up position. The trigger would come later, around 3 p.m. This time it was a glossy graphic about pivoting with integrity and embracing agile transformation. She signed it with a quote from Sun Tzu. I almost laughed. Almost. Doug hadn't said a word. Radio silent. Either he was hiding behind Maya or had already lost control. Another text came through. Just 4 words. We need you back. But I wasn't going back. They'd taken my seat, but they left the throne wide open. I wasn't planning revenge. I was conducting forensics. There's a difference. One is driven by emotion. The other is driven by fact. I wasn't pacing the living room, muttering threats under my breath. I wasn't fantasizing about slashed tires or whispered rumors. I was at my dining table, laptop open, external drive plugged in, piecing together the quiet timeline of a corporate hit job. I'd backed them up weeks before Maya's little performance in the glass room. Not because I saw it coming, but because good habits are hard to break. I kept records, spreadsheets, commission reports, email threads. Even the old sales presentation templates I'd designed back when we still used slide transitions like amateurs. I started with my Q2 commission sheet, opened the one on my backup drive and cross-referenced it with the PDF. Maya had sent HR to justify my phase-out. It took me 3 minutes to spot the difference. Line 27. Alpha 1 Technologies. My biggest renewal account. I had closed them at $2.4 million. My sheet reflected it, along with a tidy commission. Maya's version listed the contract as pending. No revenue. No credit. Just a blank cell in a sea of zeros. That wasn't a clerical error. That was surgery. I kept digging. Another line. Another edit. A deleted email thread between me and procurement, confirming a discount approval. She'd erased the thread before the handoff. Replaced it with a forward marked, incomplete needs review. The pattern became clear. She'd been inside my files at least 2 weeks before I was fired. The metadata didn't lie. Timestamps showed her user ID accessing secured folders late at night, well outside standard hours. She hadn't just stumbled into a promotion. She made it. Built it. Out of my numbers. She didn't see me as a threat. She saw me as an obstacle. I scrolled through my contacts list, found the cell number for Kurt Jessen, CTO of a defense logistics firm we'd been supplying for 4 years. The kind of account you guard with your life. Federal oversight. Contractual thresholds. You don't screw around with clients like that. I dialed. He picked up on the second ring. Rick? That you? Yeah, Kurt. Got a minute? Sure. Everything okay? Not exactly. I'm freelancing now. Out of Stratus. A pause. Damn. Sorry to hear that. Honestly, I was surprised. Figured you were the only one there who knew what was going on. That makes 2 of us. Listen, I need to ask you something. Shoot. Last week you got a new quote from my old team, right? Yeah. From a guy named Jason. Said he was taking over your book. I nodded to no one. What was the number? Just under 1.9 mil. We were shocked. I mean, we budgeted for 3.2 based on your last estimate. His quote was almost 40% lower. Honestly, thought it was a trap. It is, I said quietly. Kurt lowered his voice. Rick, is this a compliance issue? Worse, it's fraud. He didn't respond right away. Just breathed into the phone. You want me to escalate? He asked. Not yet. I need to build the case. I thanked him and hung up. My hands hovered above the keyboard, flexing out the tension. This wasn't incompetence anymore. It wasn't some green kid stepping on a landmine. Jason had sent out a quote so far below threshold. It violated the ethics terms in our federal contract. That wasn't just reckless. That was exposure, and Maya had signed off on it. I opened a new folder on my desktop, labeled it Proof of Life, because that's what this was now, evidence that I had existed, contributed, exceeded, before they tried to scrub me from the system. I added the altered spreadsheets, the email logs, the quote discrepancy from Kurt. Then I opened the archived security logs I'd saved from our VPN system. And there it was, Maya's login ID, accessing files she had no clearance for. 2:11 a.m. on a Sunday, 2 weeks before my termination date. This wasn't a reshuffle. This was premeditated. She didn't just fire me. She weaponized fraud. Would you like to move on to Chapter 4, 72 hours? Or revise any part of the chapters written so far? I wasn't planning revenge. I was conducting forensics. There's a precision to it, clicking through folders, opening archived files, comparing version histories like autopsy reports. You don't need anger to find the truth. Just patience and a steady hand. I had both. It started with the commission reports. I pulled up the final version I submitted at the end of Q2. The numbers were solid. Exceeded target by 12.4%, booked renewals, expanded into 2 new verticals, secured a 3-year agreement with a Tier 1 defense logistics client. The report was clean, the math airtight. I remembered double-checking it before submitting. Old habit. Then I opened the version that had been quietly attached to the HR file, the one Maya used to justify my phase-out. The numbers were different, subtly, like someone shaving small pieces off a statue, just enough to make it unrecognizable but not enough to set off alarms. My top 3 accounts were listed as non-recurring. Discount lines had been inflated. A margin correction I'd applied manually had been reversed. To the untrained eye, it looked like I missed my mark by a hair. But I knew better. I ran those numbers at 3 a.m., in hotel rooms. I closed those deals face to face. My hands built those figures. I cross-referenced timestamps. Her login credentials had accessed the reporting folder. 12 days before I was called into the glass room. Downloaded, edited, re-uploaded with a similar file name, just enough of a change to slip through unnoticed. It wasn't a clerical error. It was a hit job. I moved on to client records. Most of the big accounts had been transferred to Jason, including Jessen Dynamics, my crown jewel. They were a government-adjacent firm supplying military drone parts. A compliance-heavy, price-sensitive operation. You couldn't just underbid without raising red flags. It was like offering a cop a suitcase full of cash. You'd better have a damn good reason. So I called Kurt Jessen, the CTO. We'd been through 4 procurement cycles together. Trusted each other. I didn't need to tiptoe. He picked up immediately. "Rick," he said, his voice equal parts surprise and concern. "I was hoping you'd call." "Something happen?" There was a pause. Then a low exhale. "Your replacement sent over a new quote last week, for the same SKUs, 40% lower than your original projection." I frowned. 40? 42 to be exact. We assumed it was a mistake. But then he followed up saying it was part of a new pricing initiative. Aggressive growth phase, he called it. My stomach went still. Did he copy Maya? No, CC. Just him. Straight from his inbox. I looked down at the open spreadsheet on my laptop. My original quote. Adjusted carefully for compliance. A number that met federal standards without raising any eyebrows. Jason's number would get laughed out of a defense audit right before triggering an ethics investigation. They're playing a dangerous game. I said. I figured as much. We haven't signed anything yet. Wanted to give you a heads up. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I sat in silence for a full minute. Hands folded, watching the cursor blink in the corner of the screen. This wasn't about me being outdated. This wasn't about lean operations or agile shifts. This was fraud. Deliberate. Coordinated. Executed. With the confidence of someone who thought no one was watching. But I was watching now. I opened a new folder on my drive, named it Proof of Life. I dragged in my commission sheets, original emails, and screenshots of Maya's unauthorized access timestamps, added metadata logs showing her edits. I layered in Kurt's testimony, including the quote, discrepancy. Every file was a heartbeat. Every timestamp was blood flow. Every receipt said, I was here. I built this. I mattered. It wasn't just about proving I was good at my job. It was about proving I existed before they erased me. She didn't just fire me. She weaponized fraud. The moment the feds walked in, she reached for her purse. Too late. They came in, quiet. 2 men in blue. Windbreakers. Short hair. Flat expressions. No guns drawn. No barking commands. Just a calm kind of authority that made everyone in the office sit up a little straighter. The lead agent asked for Maya by name, held up a sealed folder, and said 7 words that stopped the entire floor. We need to speak with you privately. From my seat in the back of the courtroom 3 weeks later, I watched her twist in that same black blazer she wore the day she fired me. Her hair was perfect, lips a shade too bold, but her hands couldn't stop moving, tapping her thigh, gripping the edge of the table, reaching for a glass of water and then setting it back down untouched. I was called to the stand on a Wednesday. No drama, no gasps, just my name. Followed by a slow walk under courtroom lights. I raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat down across from the federal prosecutor. a woman with eyes like surgical blades. She didn't need to warm me up. She knew I'd come ready. Wallace, can you walk the court through your original Q2 commission report? I opened the folder. Yes, ma'am. This is the report I submitted before my termination. You'll see line items for Alpha 1, Jessen Dynamics, and Red Splice Systems. All closed accounts, verified with signed agreements. And were these numbers altered in any way after submission? Yes. Maya Carrington accessed the reporting system on July 12th at 2:11 a.m. and manually modified 3 entries. Those changes were used as justification for my removal. The prosecutor nodded. Can you verify the original timestamps? I held up the USB drive I'd brought. Everything's in here, backed up before I was locked out. No theatrics, no flair. Just facts. When Jason was called next, he didn't last 10 minutes before he broke, said Maya had told him to shake things up. That she instructed him to undercut legacy clients, even if it meant skirting compliance. That she assured him no one would check because, and I quote, old tech doesn't fight back. He looked over at me when he said that. I didn't blink. Doug fired both of them within 48 hours of the hearing. No press conference, no apology, just an internal memo, brief and cold. The same way they'd handled my exit. But the press came anyway. The Austin Ledger ran a front-page piece titled, Old Tech was the backbone all along. They used a photo from our 10-year anniversary party. There I was, center frame, arm around Doug, back when loyalty still meant something. Maya was indicted on charges of document falsification, fraud, and obstruction. Her lawyer tried to argue it was all a misunderstanding, that she'd made strategic adjustments under pressure. But the evidence didn't bend, and neither did the law. Her MBA became a punchline overnight, good for nothing but wiping her resume clean. Jason was blacklisted across the regional circuit. Recruiters dropped him. Tech boards flagged him. Last I checked, his LinkedIn said open to work and showed a 6-month gap where his career used to be. Doug reached out through his assistant. Wanted to. Offered a buyout package 5 figures, plus a non-disclosure agreement. I read the first 2 lines, then slid the envelope back across the table. I'm not interested in silence, I said. He didn't fight me on it. Just nodded. Like he knew the story had already escaped the box. I kept the house. Took a consulting job 6 months later. Nothing flashy. Just companies who needed steady hands to clean up messes left by kids who thought tech could replace experience. It couldn't, still can't. Every so often, I tell this story, not out of bitterness, but because people need to understand how quickly loyalty can be turned into liability. How easily trust is overwritten by arrogance in a pressed suit and a laminated degree. Her voice used to purr, but in court, it cracked like glass.